For 5 years, I was married to a woman with a mind of a child. My wife, my parents, far from objecting, just told me to take good care of her. So I did. I fed her, bathed her, taught her how to dress herself. Then one day, as I reached out to help her into the shower, her hand shot out and clamped around my wrist like a vice. I looked up and met a pair of ice-cold eyes I hadn't seen in half a decade. "Don't you touch me with your filthy hands." Just like that, Chloe Vance was back. After slapping me across the face, she walked out of our house. The next time I saw her, she was on the cover of Forbes, the newly minted CEO of the Vance Corporation, untouchable and remote. It was the first time in 5 years I'd seen that cold, imperious look on her face. She tossed a portfolio onto the coffee table between us. Inside was a divorce agreement. I scanned it, marveling at the sheer generosity of the settlement. A king's ransom. But there was a catch. The divorce wouldn't be legally effective until 1 year from today. I figured it was a PR move. She couldn't afford the scandal of returning to the pinnacle of the corporate world only to immediately dump the devoted husband who'd cared for her through her darkest years. But then, wasn't she worried about the gossip now? She brought her old flame, Julian, back into her life with a brazenness that was almost theatrical, their public displays of affection plastered all over page 6. I wasn't about to be the pathetic, cuckolded husband in her little drama. I found Chloe and begged her to just let me go, told her I wished them best. She ignored me, insisting we wait out the year. My parents chimed in too. "It's normal for rich people to be a little adventurous, honey. As long as you're still her husband, that's what matters," my mother said over the phone. "Exactly," my dad added. "Those other guys are just passing through. You've been by her side the longest. One day, she'll see how good you've been to her." A chill went through me. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice flat. "Is that really how you see it? As long as the money's good, anything goes?" 5 years. You could warm a stone in 5 years, but you couldn't warm her heart. If Chloe Vance had any real feelings for me, that divorce agreement would never have existed. 5 years ago, Chloe's father, the formidable patriarch of the Vance Corporation, fell ill and decided to step back. The battle for succession among the Vance heirs was brutal. Chloe, the frontrunner, was sabotaged. A mysterious fall down a long flight of marble stairs left her with a severe brain injury. She became a beautiful, empty shell with the cognitive function of a 4-year-old, a constant, faint line of drool at the corner of her mouth. It took her out of the line of fire, away from the bloodless war in the boardroom. And in her childlike state, she clung to me, insisting we get married. So we did, and I became a model husband, tending to her every need. I finally endured until she woke up, but the timing was too perfect. The war for the Vance Empire had ended in a stalemate, with both of her main rivals destroying each other's careers. Chloe, the forgotten invalid, was completely untouched by the fallout. Old man Vance was furious, and the corporation was desperate for a leader. Chloe's sharp, sudden return made her the logical, inevitable choice to take the reins. Only then did I realize how simple I'd been. I wasn't her savior. I was a pawn in her long game, a piece on the board. And now, I was a piece to be sacrificed. She had the power she'd always craved, and the husband who'd served as her shield was now just a liability. The day she came back, she shed the simple dress, stained with drool, and put on an expensive, custom-tailored gown. She looked at me with those cold, distant eyes. "Ethan," she said, her voice like glass, "do you see the distance between us now?" I saw it. She was no longer the little girl who would timidly clutch the hem of my shirt and call me in. No longer the girl who'd pout until I fed her, who I taught to braid her own hair, who'd dive into my arms and sob during thunderstorms. The Chloe standing before me was a titan of industry, wielding immense power. A man like me? How could I ever be worthy of her gaze? As if worried I'd cling to her, Chloe warned me multiple times not to get any ideas. And yet, she was the one dragging out the divorce. Was it some kind of power trip? Forcing me to remain her husband while I watched her flaunt her relationship with another man. The day before Julian officially moved in, the housekeeping staff deep cleaned the entire penthouse from top to bottom. They even hung up festive lights and decorations. Anyone who didn't know better would think they were getting married, moving in for their honeymoon. Hell, maybe they didn't need a wedding for that. When it came to Julian, her precious old flame, Chloe never held back. Sports cars, designer watches, she'd buy him anything without a second thought. The sheer scale of her devotion was so intense that even I, the husband, was almost impressed. After she took over as CEO, her every move was scrutinized. Her blatant favoritism toward Julian became common knowledge. When my best friend, Leo Martinez, took me out for beers, he couldn't stop ranting about them. The spray from his shouting nearly hit my fries. 5 years, man. 5 freaking years. Nobody else knows what you went through, but I saw it all, he fumed. Chloe Vance is a goddamn sociopath. The second she gets power, she kicks you to the curb and shoves this pretty boy toy in your face to rub it in. I looked at his indignant expression and couldn't help but crack a smile. You're getting a little worked up? You'd think you were the one getting dumped. Leo slammed his hand on the table. We're brothers. You get dumped, I get dumped. What's the difference? I stared at him bewildered. Don't me. Your problem, Ethan, is you're too damn nice. People walk all over you, and you just take it. Remember when they all stood around, calling her a freak? You were the only one who stood up for her. How much crap have you taken for her over the years? The whispers, the pitying looks. He took another angry swig of beer. And that sleazeball Julian. He knows she's married, and he still worms his way in to be the other man. What a piece of work. Leo kept venting, getting more and more heated, as if he were about to grab a tire iron and go looking for them. My friends were outraged for me, but honestly, I didn't feel much. You can't waste emotion on people who aren't worth it. To get him to calm down and actually eat, I changed the subject. Hey, you know anyone hiring? Looking for a new gig? Come to my company. We're dying for someone with your talent. Leo's whole mood brightened instantly. Our CEO is a woman too. Young, gorgeous, killer body. Once he started talking about his boss, he couldn't stop, rattling off every compliment imaginable. Then he couldn't resist a final jab at Chloe, wondering aloud how two young, beautiful CEOs could be so different. One so faithful and devoted, the other not. If I hadn't known him since we were kids, I'd have thought he was trying to set me up. I'm talking about work, and you're already on to beautiful women. You never change. I joked, not taking it too seriously. My job search was just a way to pass the time, to prepare for the day this year was finally over and my life could go back to normal. Maybe then I'd finally be free of these wealthy, dramatic people and their games. When I got home, I walked right in on Chloe and Julian locked in a passionate kiss on the living room sofa. They were so wrapped up in each other, they didn't hear me. I froze, feeling a wave of awkwardness. My timing was terrible. If I'd known they were here, I would have stayed out longer. Sorry, my bad. I muttered, turning to leave. But then Julian's voice, smooth as silk, cut through the air. Ethan, you just got home. Why are you leaving again? This was the first time I'd ever been face-to-face with Julian. He was undeniably handsome, barely in his early 20s, with sly, fox-like eyes that had a strange, captivating pull. If I were a woman, I'd probably feel the impulse to pull him into an embrace, too. But my attention was snagged by the cluster of dark hickeys on his collarbone. It wasn't hard to guess what he and Chloe had been up to last night. Not that I needed to see it to know. The three of us lived under the same roof. I could hear the sounds from their room filtering into mine every night. Julian's voice seemed to finally alert Chloe to my presence. She turned her head, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. It seemed I really had interrupted something important. I wisely kept my distance, offering a quick apology. Sorry, I didn't realize you two were busy. I was just coming home to get some rest. My attempt at being discreet was lost on Julian. He nuzzled his cheek against Chloe's hand, his expression turning pouty and wounded. Does Ethan hate me? Why does he leave the second he sees me? Did I do something to upset him? Chloe immediately kissed him a comforting little peck. No one in the world could dislike my jewels. Then, she shot a venomous glare in my direction. Get over here and apologize to Julian. Now. I walked over silently, keeping my head down, trying to make myself as small as possible. Chloe, Julian whined, his voice dripping with faux innocence. Am I so ugly that Ethan can't even bear to look at me? The performance was so over the top, it was cringe-inducing. Nonsense. My Jules is the most adorable man in the world. Anyone who can't see how wonderful you are must be blind. As she said this, Chloe's eyes were fixed on me, making it painfully clear who the blind person was. I'd seen that look from her before. It was unnervingly familiar. Years ago, shortly after we were married, Chloe's cousin Morgan had tried to humiliate her in public. I'd shut her down with a few sarcastic remarks, and Morgan, enraged, had raised her hand to slap me. But Chloe, my simple Chloe, had thrown herself in front of me, her voice fierce as she yelled, "Nobody is allowed to bully my Ethan." The look she'd given Morgan then, cold, full of disgust and warning, was the exact same look she was giving me now. I never thought the girl who once swore to protect me would now use that same fierce loyalty to protect someone else from me. I stood there, saying nothing, doing nothing, yet I was somehow the villain who hated Julian. Chloe's biased defense made Julian light up. He shot her a flirtatious, triumphant glance. "Chloe, you're the best to me." Of course, I said, forcing a placid tone. Anyone can see how perfect Mr. Croft and Miss Vance are for each other. I just wanted to get out of there. But I might have been imagining it, because after I said that, Chloe's gaze on me seemed to sharpen, to become even more piercing. Maybe my words reminded her of the humiliating times when, as her simple self, she had to act meek and subservient in front of others. My mind started to wander, but I knew better than to make a scene. In stark contrast to Chloe, Julian was thrilled with my response. "Ethan, you really know how to say the right thing." He then delivered the final blow. "Since you don't want to disturb us, would you mind taking a walk for a while?" Seeing my chance to escape, I smiled brightly. "Wouldn't want to be a third wheel. I'll go now." Throughout the entire exchange, Chloe didn't say another word, her attention completely absorbed by the man in her arms. I wasn't surprised. I just wanted this year to fly by, so I could finally get away from them for good. I didn't notice it then, but as I walked away, Chloe's eyes followed my back, a deep, unreadable expression flickering within them for just a moment. She hid it so well that even Julian assumed she was just annoyed at me for interrupting them. He paid no mind to her brief lapse. When I returned later, Julian was gone. I scanned the living room, but Chloe was nowhere to be seen either. "Looks like they won't be back tonight," I thought with a sense of relief. But just as I was about to head upstairs, a low, cold voice cut through the silence from behind the sofa. So you're this happy when I'm not home." I spun around. Chloe was leaning against the sofa in the dark, her face a mask of shadows, her gaze predatory and dangerous. I jumped. Was she trying to give me a heart attack, playing ghost in the dark? I swallowed my snarky thoughts and feigned surprise as I walked toward her. "Chloe, why are you sitting in the dark?" Suddenly, she grabbed my shoulders, her grip tight. "Ethan Sawyer, have you forgotten we're still married?" Her expression was stormy. I guess she was still angry that I walked in on her and Julian. I had no idea how to handle this version of Chloe and didn't want to start a fight. I had no choice but to force a reply. "Of course I remember." I cleared my throat. "But please, don't worry. Today was an accident. I'll be more careful next time. I won't disturb you and Mr. Croft again." Chloe's expression darkened even further. A strange, mocking laugh escaped her lips as her hand slid down to my waist. Through the thin fabric of my shirt, I could feel the heat of her palm. "Ethan," she murmured, her voice low and intense, "I remember you once told me you would never betray me, never leave me. Is that right?" "Yes," I said, lowering my head to meet her aggressive gaze. "But we've already signed the divorce papers, so those promises don't count anymore." "What? Are you putting on this little act to remind me about the divorce? Or have you fallen in love with me?" "No, Chloe, I think you've misunderstood. This marriage was nothing but a part of your plan from the very beginning. How could a pawn fall for the player?" Her eyes bored into mine, deep and inscrutable, her emotions impossible to read. But she held all the cards, the power over my family's well-being. It was the leverage that forced me to agree to this one-year charade. "Good, very good," Chloe said, suddenly releasing me. Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. "Ethan, you'd better remember what you just said. I'm sure you're a man who knows his place. So for this final year, you will fulfill your duties as my husband." I had always thought that even if there was no love between us, she would at least treat me with some decency, considering I had dedicated 5 years to her care. But this sudden rage seemed to come from nowhere. I assumed Julian must have said something to her earlier, but that didn't quite make sense. His little test had already confirmed my irrelevance in her heart. He got what he wanted, so why would he bother to keep provoking me? "I understand," I said. I followed her into the master bedroom. By the time I finished my shower, Chloe was already asleep in bed, leaving only a small nightlight glowing in the corner. It was a habit she'd developed after the accident, a lingering fear from her years as a simpleton. Even with me there, she would always remind me to leave a light on. I stared at her sleeping face for a long moment before slowly lying down on the far side of the king-size bed. I thought I'd be wide awake all night, but the quiet of the room and the exhaustion of the day quickly pulled me under. I had a dream. In it, I was running along a beach, hand in hand with a girl, laughing freely. I knew this was a memory from before I was forced to marry Chloe. And the girl. She was the one who had vanished from my life the day I said I do. For all these years, I had tried everything, but I could never find a trace of her. Just as the dream was turning sweeter, a chill ran down my spine. I snapped awake and saw Chloe, propped up on her elbow, staring at me intently from her side of the bed. I was so startled I almost fell off. Before I could recover, her cold voice cut through the air. "Who gave you permission to sleep next to me?" She spat the words. "I let you in here to serve me. You can't even do that right. You're useless. Get out." The Chloe who was no longer pretending was volatile, her mood swinging without warning. I couldn't figure her out, but being banished from her room was a blessing. I scrambled out of bed, still groggy from sleep. In my haste, I stumbled and nearly crashed into the nightstand. I caught my balance and left without a backward glance. I didn't see the hand she had half extended toward me, a hand that froze mid-air and then pulled back. The next morning, Chloe was gone, already at the office. Even though she had ruthlessly purged the company of all dissenters on her first day back, her cousin Morgan was still scheming, not to mention the old guard of shareholders who had backed Morgan still lurking in the shadows. Fortunately for Chloe, she had the backing of Julian's family, the Crofts. Without that alliance, securing her position at Vance Corp wouldn't have been so easy. As for me, I hadn't slept well. When I met up with Leo later that day, he immediately noticed the dark circles under my eyes. "Dude, what happened to you? You look like you've been up all night robbing graves," he said. "Just some insomnia," I lied. "It's been a while since I was in the job market. Stayed up polishing my resume." "Don't push yourself too hard," Leo said, clapping me on the shoulder. "With your skills, you'll kill it at our company." I have no doubt. I was confident in my own abilities. That wasn't what was bothering me. I was thinking about last night. Chloe had stayed home. Even though nothing had actually happened between us, in Julian's eyes, it was a provocation. I had a bad feeling he was going to come looking for me. Sure enough, as Leo and I were leaving the building after my interview, one of Julian's bodyguard approached me. "Mr. Sawyer, our young master requests your presence at the lounge. Please come with us." The man was huge, a full head taller than me. He looked down his nose at me with a condescending smirk playing on his lips that was designed to be infuriating. Leo immediately bristled. Well, he sneered. "Look what we have here. A dog that's been with its master so long it starts thinking it's human." He let out a nasty laugh. "You'd think you were somebody important. Trash should know its place. This isn't a recycling center." Leo's verbal assault turned the bodyguard's face a dark shade of red. "Mr. Sawyer," the bodyguard growled, his voice tight. "Our young master's invitation is sincere. I hope you won't be foolish. You should control your friend. You don't want to anger the wrong people." I laughed coldly. A stray dog barks at people on the street. It has no manners. My friend scolds it. It's not an overreaction. Are you taking it personally because the description fits? After the bodyguard stormed off, his face a mask of fury, Leo shot me a grin and raised his eyebrows. "I'm surprised you didn't stop me. I thought you were going to hold back like you always do," he added. "I'm telling you, next time you see that cheating scumbag and his mistress, you should let them have it just like that. It feels good." His enthusiasm made me smile. Yeah. When it comes to arguing, no one's ever been able to beat you. To be honest, I was indifferent to Chloe and Julian. I didn't care enough to waste my breath on them. Julian just wanted to flaunt his victory and mock me a little. His words went in one ear and out the other. "If I let every little thing get to me, my life would be miserable. I know you're sticking up for me," I told Leo, "but we really don't need to get angry over people like that. Julian just wants me to be jealous, right? The best revenge is not giving him the satisfaction." I was grateful my best friend had my back, but I didn't want him to get dragged into this mess. Julian was clearly an arrogant and vindictive person. He wouldn't take this slight line down. In the private lounge, Julian was all smiles, instructing the waitress to pour me a cup of tea. "Ethan, you have to try this. Let me know what you think. Anything for Mr. Croft is bound to be top shelf," I replied with a polite smile. It's a shame a simple guy like me doesn't have the palate to appreciate it. I'd heard Julian was a tea connoisseur. Chloe had bought him this entire lounge and scoured the country for rare teas to deliver right to his hands. Her devotion was legendary. My words didn't seem to anger him. Instead, he just smiled, his eyes fixed on me. "I heard you're looking for a job, Ethan. Are you short on cash? Why didn't you say anything to Chloe? She would be upset if she knew." He paused. "If you're too embarrassed to ask her, you can always ask me. I may not be much, but I'm not lacking for money. Just say the word, and as your little brother, I'll take care of you." I instinctively tightened my lips, my eyes falling on the black credit card he slid across the table. I found it almost comical. Not only did he talk in that cloying, manipulative way, but his methods of buying people off were just as cliché. "I appreciate the thought, Mr. Croft, but I'm not one for handouts. My marriage to Chloe was an agreement from the start. I've already taken what was mine. Anything more is unnecessary." I figured Chloe hadn't told him the full story of our arrangement, which was why he saw me as a threat to his position. Thinking this, I pulled the vintage signet ring from my finger, a Vance family heirloom Chloe's grandmother had given me on our wedding day, and pushed it across the table along with the black card. My action stunned not only Julian, but also his bodyguard standing behind him. Julian probably never expected me to surrender what he wanted so easily. He recovered quickly, a smile returning to his face as he took the items. Ethan, what are you saying? I've always thought of you as my own brother. Of course a brother should help another brother in need. I imagine Julian had never encountered a love rival as accommodating as me. I had gracefully exited the stage before he even had to make a move. He probably held me in some contempt now, seeing me as a coward. And if that's the impression I left him with, that was perfect. Julian personally poured me another cup of tea. Ethan, he said, his eyes glinting, that's a nice necklace you have on. How about you sell it to your little brother? My hand flew to my neck, protectively covering the simple silver chain. This is just a cheap trinket. If you like necklaces, Chloe will surely get you something much better. This necklace was a gift from the girl in my memories. It had been with me for over a decade. Even though I couldn't clearly remember her face anymore, there was no way I was giving it up. Julian let out a soft laugh, his eyes full of certainty. Ethan, you should know when Julian Croft wants something, he gets it. Was he planning to take it by force? My face hardened, and I stared at him blankly. Mr. Croft, I suggest you don't get too greedy. He was unmoved. With a wave of his hand, two of his bodyguards flanked me. One of them reached for my neck. Just as his fingers were about to touch me, I ducked under the table, shot across the space, and came up right in front of Julian. Before anyone could react, I swung. A hard left hook connected with his jaw. A blotchy red mark immediately bloomed on his pretty face. Ethan Sawyer. Julian's eyes widened in disbelief, a venomous hatred burning in them. For the first time, I didn't back down. I grabbed his chin with one hand, forcing his head up to meet my gaze. Julian, just because I don't fight doesn't mean I don't have a temper. This time, I said, my voice low and dangerous, you cross a line. I released him, watching the fear creep into his eyes, then turned and walked out of the lounge without another word. It didn't take long for the rumors to spread. Ethan Sawyer and Julian Croft had gotten into a physical fight over Chloe Vance's affections. So I wasn't surprised when Chloe burst into my room, her face a thundercloud. She was clearly here to get justice for Julian. I was ready for whatever she had to dish out, but I wasn't met with punishment. Instead, her voice was tight with a suppressed rage I didn't expect. Our agreement and the signet ring grandmother gave you. You gave them to Julian. I was stunned. Of all the things she could have said, this was the first. After a moment, I figured it out. She must have been planning to give Julian the ring herself as some grand gesture a year from now, and I had ruined her surprise. Chloe, I explained, there was never anything real between us. Julian genuinely cares for you, and I'm sure you wouldn't want him to feel insecure because of me. Ethan Sawyer, she cut me off, her voice trembling. Have you really seen our marriage as nothing but a transaction all these years? Are you that desperate to leave me? I looked at her, completely baffled by her misplaced anger. Isn't it? I countered. Wasn't this marriage something you forced on me in the first place? A strange, heavy silence fell between us. Chloe stared at me, stunned for a moment, a flicker of guilt crossing her features before she recomposed herself. Julian just wanted a necklace. You should have just given it to him. It's not even valuable. I'll buy you a better, more expensive one another day. Okay. Impossible, I said, each word clear and firm. The ring grandmother gave you is worth millions, and you gave it away without a second thought. But you won't part with a cheap, worthless necklace. Chloe's eyes narrowed, a dangerous light entering them. Ethan, don't tell me you're holding on to a love token from someone else behind my back. Chloe, I've had this since I was a kid. It's my personal property. I think I have the right to refuse a forced sale. I met her gaze without flinching, my resolve unshakable. Please, Chloe, I said, my voice softening slightly. For the sake of the 5 years I took care of you without complaint, don't make me hate you in this final stretch. Her brow furrowed. She studied my face for a long moment, then gave me one last, deep look. If you don't want people going after it, then don't be so conspicuous. With that, she turned and slammed the door behind her. I watched the empty space where she had been, and for the first time, my eyes burned with tears. It was the first time in 5 years I had defied Chloe's wishes. But to protect this necklace, I would have been willing to burn everything to the ground. It was just a shame that so much time had passed. I had long forgotten the face of the girl who gave it to me, and I had no idea where she was now. This necklace was the only thing I had left of her. And thankfully, in the end, Chloe had backed down. I heard that to make it up to Julian, Chloe bought him a one-of-a-kind necklace at an international auction for over $100 million. Then, for his birthday, she gifted him a jewel-encrusted crown that had once belonged to European royalty. Chloe's extravagant gestures for Julian became a national sensation, and I, as her official husband, became the object of public pity. The next time I saw Julian, he was as arrogant and flamboyant as ever. What caught my eye, of course, was the spectacular diamond necklace glittering around his neck. "Hey, Ethan," Leo whispered, his eyes wide. "Is that the necklace? The one they're saying is worth over 100 million. Given how much Chloe dotes on him, I doubt she'd fob him off with a fake," I replied dryly. No wonder she'd given me that warning. This was her idea of a solution. Who knows? I tore my gaze away and calmly took a seat. As soon as I sat down, I overheard the people at the next table discussing Julian's necklace. "It looks like Ms. Vance is truly smitten. A necklace that expensive, and she bought it for him without batting an eye. Tell me about it. That Croft kid really hit the jackpot. Chloe's brain barely comes back online, and he's already latched onto her. You'd better keep your voice down. If the wrong people hear you, I can't protect you." The voices trailed off. I glanced over and saw the two men who had been gossiping now staring at me with embarrassed expressions. They must have recognized me. I gave them a polite nod. "Please continue. Don't mind me. After all, the things Julian wanted to show off meant nothing to me. It wasn't worth the argument." But in their eyes, my silence was a sign of heartbreak. The table fell quiet. I sighed internally. It seemed I wouldn't be able to shake this pathetic image until the day Chloe and I were officially divorced. Since the Vance and Croft families had joined forces, their power and influence had soared. Everyone at this event was here to curry favor with Julian. Even the men who had been bad-mouthing him moments before were now fawning over him. I sat alone, watching the spectacle. It was fine by me. Let them have their fun. The idea that Chloe adored Julian wasn't just talk. The evidence was everywhere. Even the catering at this banquet, every dish, every drink, was tailored to Julian's tastes. With that level of devotion, who wouldn't believe she was madly in love with him? I finished the drink in my hand without realizing it. Just as I stood up to get another, a delicate, fair hand stopped me. "Ethan, I remember you've always had a weak stomach. You should drink less." I snapped my head up. A familiar face, one I hadn't seen in what felt like a lifetime, came into view. Maya. Seeing that face, locked away in my memory for so long, I felt for a moment like I was dreaming. I instinctively reached out, wanted to touch her, to make sure she was real, but then pulled my hand back, afraid. "Is it really you?" "Maya, it's me." Maya took my hand first. Her skin was cool, and the touch instantly grounded my racing heart. "I'm sorry. I'm late." I slowly shook my head, still finding it hard to believe. The person I had searched for so many years was suddenly, impossibly, standing right in front of me. "Look at you," she said, her voice soft. She gently pinched my earlobe. Same blank stare. A soft sigh escaped her. "Leo told me you haven't had it easy with the Vances, that you've been treated unfairly. Are you an idiot? If someone bullies you, you bully them back. Have you forgotten everything I taught you? So many years, and you haven't changed a bit. Honestly, I haven't been bullied. I'm doing fine." I squeezed her hand, holding it tightly. There were a million questions I wanted to ask her, but I knew this wasn't the time or place. My gaze shifted to Leo, who was hiding behind Maya, looking guilty. That traitor. He really had been bought, acting as a spy right under my nose. On the empty second-floor terrace of the estate, Maya and I stood side by side, a comfortable silence stretching between us. Leo had volunteered to stand guard at the top of the stairs, a self-appointed lookout. After a long moment, I was the one who broke the silence. "Maya, where have you been all these years? I've been looking for you." I'm sorry, Ethan." A flicker of difficulty crossed her eyes. "I can't tell you where I've been just yet, but I can tell you this. I've been watching over you." So she knew. All these years, she knew everything about me and Chloe. I pressed my lips together. A moment ago, my head was swimming with questions, but now they were all stuck in my throat, a painful lump. The only thing that came out was a choked, awkward question. "Then, why did you suddenly show up here tonight?" "Because I couldn't wait any longer," she said, a new hardness in her voice. "Watching what Chloe and Julian are doing to you. I couldn't stand it anymore. I was taken aback. Couldn't wait." In my memory, Maya, Leo, and I were all from the same world. Ordinary families living in cramped walk-up apartments in Queens. But the Maya standing before me now was different. Her family, her resources, they were on par with the Vance Corporation. A person doesn't just stumble into that kind of wealth and power unless they were standing at the top of the pyramid from the very beginning. Following that line of thought, I think I started to understand why she had disappeared for all those years. As the possibility dawned on me, the anxiety that had been twisting in my gut began to ease. As long as she hadn't left me by choice, I could forgive any reason. If she was willing to tell me, I would understand. But Maya didn't elaborate on her own story. Instead, she looked at me with solemn eyes and made a promise. "Ethan, trust me. Just give me a little more time, and I swear I will get you away from Chloe Vance." Her voice was nothing like Chloe's, which was deeper and colder. Maya's voice was naturally gentle and soft. When she made a promise, it was impossible not to believe her. Okay, I nodded instinctively. I'll wait for you. My marriage to Chloe had been a farce from the start. I was at the hospital with Leo for a checkup and happened to run into Chloe right after her accident. Her cousin Morgan had brought a group of people to taunt her. As I passed by her room, Chloe, in her confused state, rushed out and clung to me, refusing to let go. The next thing I knew, I was dragged into their family's power struggle. Then Chloe, with her grandmother in tow, showed up at my parents' apartment and announced she wanted to marry me. When I refused, they went to work on my parents. A combination of threats and promises later, I was forced to sign a marriage agreement. For 5 years, I was technically bound to Chloe, but I was more like a glorified caregiver, looking after the simple girl she pretended to be. In return, Chloe and her grandmother secretly funneled a substantial amount of money to my family. That's why my parents were so desperate for me not to divorce her. It's easy to get used to a life of luxury and nearly impossible to give up. If she hadn't thrown that divorce agreement at me after she recovered, demanding I step aside for Julian, I might still be trapped in that gilded cage. Lying in bed later that night, I replayed the last few years in my head. Lately, Chloe and Julian's relationship had grown even more intense, and in the public eye, I had all but disappeared. This was a good thing. With the Croft family support, Chloe's position was secure, and no one dared to challenge her openly. Maybe our contract could end early. As I was lost in thought, the door to my room creaked open and a figure slipped inside. I shot up in bed, and before I could turn on a light, a familiar scent enveloped me. Ethan, in the dim light filtering through the doorway, I could see Chloe looking down at me, her expression surprisingly soft. Ethan, it's been so long since I've held you like this. When Chloe was a simpleton, she used to have nightmares every night. She would sneak into my room and beg me to hold her until she fell asleep. If I refused, she would just tug on my hand and repeat my name, Ethan, Ethan, over and over until I gave in. Back then, I saw her as nothing more than a spoiled little sister. I would soothe her to sleep, then spend the rest of the night on the sofa, sneaking back to my own room before dawn. She probably never knew. But what was with her tonight? Why wasn't she with Julian? Why was she here, putting on this deeply affectionate act? Ethan, don't leave me, okay? Her breath, heavy with the smell of alcohol, washed over my neck, making my skin crawl. Morgan still controls over 40% of the company's stock, and a third of the board is still on her side. I need the Croft support. You can understand that, can't you? Her voice was a low murmur. The only reason I gave you that divorce agreement was because I was angry. Angry that there was always someone else in your heart. I just wanted you to finally, truly see me. I pushed against her shoulders, trying to create some space. Chloe, can you please get up? We can talk then. Her grip only tightened, her embrace becoming possessive. No, Ethan, ever since I came back to the company, you haven't been willing to talk to me. Not really. Her face moved closer, her cheek brushing against mine. I saw you leaving with that other woman today. Are you really going to leave me? Her voice was a desperate whisper. I know I've put you through hell these last few months, but I need the Crofts to truly secure my place at Vance Corp. Even if I marry Julian in a year, you'll always be the one I love most. I had never seen such a gentle expression on Chloe's face. But looking into those eyes, all I felt was a profound sense of unease. She had no intention of ever letting me go. No, Chloe, get up, I said, my voice rising in panic as her face drew closer to mine. Just as I was about to shove her off me forcefully, a frantic knocking came from the door. Ms. Vance. Ms. Vance. You need to go to Mr. Crofts. His assistant just called. He's drunk and making a scene because you're not there. The bodyguards can't control him. Chloe's body went rigid, and a frown creased her forehead. After a long moment, she leaned in and pressed a soft, lingering kiss on my forehead before reluctantly getting up. I have to go check on him. If you're tired, just go to sleep. We'll finish this conversation when I get back. But Chloe was gone for over a week. When I saw her again, she looked exhausted and haggard. I guessed that Julian, spoiled by her indulgence, had become increasingly demanding, and she was weary from dealing with him. But that wasn't my problem. Today, I had plans with Maya. We were going hiking to watch the sunset. So I merely glanced at Chloe, who was sitting silently on the living room sofa, and headed for the door. Where are you going? She was off the sofa in a flash, her hand clamping down on my arm. Our agreement doesn't require me to report my whereabouts, Chloe, so please let go. I pried her fingers off my arm, grabbed my backpack, and tried to walk around her. No, you can't go. A panicked look crossed her face. I had rarely seen her so openly emotional. She looked even more frantic than the time she'd been pushed into the pool, and I, a poor swimmer, had jumped in to save her, only to come down with a raging fever that night. Even though I'd long suspected her 5-year-long illness was an act, her worry for me back then had felt real. Is it Maya? Are you going to see her? Are you leaving with her? You can't go. Ethan Sawyer, I'm telling you, you're not allowed to go. Do you hear me? I won't let you leave me. I won't. Her eyes were red and wild, her grip on my shoulders tightening. It felt as if I said the wrong word. She would snap and break my legs. I understood her absurd possessiveness, but I didn't accept it. She was like a child whose toy was being taken away. Even if it wasn't her favorite toy, she could still scream and declare that it belonged to her. To Chloe, I was the man who had cared for her for 5 years. In her subconscious, I had become her property. Chloe, don't you think this is pointless? I let out a long breath, no longer fighting. I turned to face her, looking her directly in the eye. I was done playing her games. If you hadn't used those tactics back then, I would have never gotten tangled up with you. I played the part of a dutiful husband for 5 years. You've gotten everything you wanted. What more could you possibly want from me? Ethan, Chloe was speechless. After a moment, she stared at me in disbelief. I know it was wrong of me to drag you into the Vance family's mess in the first place. But after you took care of me so devotedly for 5 years, I thought you would at least care about me a little. Chloe, don't forget, this was a transaction, I said, my face a blank mask. You paid me, and I took care of you. It was a job. I couldn't imagine anyone falling in love with their captor, unless they were out of their mind. Did Chloe actually think she was the star of some ridiculous romantic drama? Some twisted story of a forced marriage leading to true love? Don't be ridiculous, Chloe. Your infidelity alone would have been enough to extinguish any spark of affection I might have ever felt for you. You killed it before it even had a chance to grow. Do you know why I never cared about Julian's provocations? Because I don't even care about you. To me, the two of you and your little games are nothing more than a pathetic circus. With that, I pried her hands off me one last time, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and walked out her house without looking back. 1 year later, did you hear? Chloe Vance, the head of the Vance Corporation, is getting married to that young Mr. Croft next month. That's not what I heard. I heard things are really ugly between the Vance and Croft families right now. My uncle is a gardener for the Crofts, and he told me he overheard a huge fight between them in a garden. Something about Chloe having a man on the side. What? If that's true, this is going to be good. Wasn't the Croft kid the other man in the first place? Talk about karma. Serve him right. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Young Mr. Croft is getting a taste of his own medicine. Oh, and I also heard that the guy Chloe is seeing on the side looks a lot like her ex-husband. You don't think? I think I'd better sell my Vance Corp stock. The way they're going to run that company into the ground. I was at an auction, and the conversation from the next table drifted over. I paused my phone call for a second, then quickly recovered, speaking softly into my phone. You don't have to rush. Drive safely. Okay, Maya's smiling voice came through the receiver, warm as always. See if there's anything you like. Bid on it. Consider it an early birthday present from me. I smiled back, told her again to be safe, and hung up. My thoughts drifted back to the conversation I just overheard. Chloe and Julian getting married next month? I wasn't surprised. After our final confrontation a year ago, I moved in with Leo. Chloe tried to contact me several times, but I kept my distance. Eventually, she stopped trying. The next time I saw her was at the courthouse on the day our divorce was finalized. She looked like she wanted to say something, but Julian was pulling at her arm, so she just rushed through the paperwork. So, she'd found a replacement for me? A look-alike? What was that supposed to be? Some kind of performance of devotion? The thought sent a wave of revulsion through me. I didn't think I could ever look at her face again. Not that I'd have much reason to. After the divorce, I re-entered the world. I took a job at Maya's company. And just as I had suspected all those years ago, Maya's background was far from simple. The life we shared in that cramped Queens apartment had been a test for a wealthy heir. But seeing me get entangled with Chloe, Maya had chosen a different, more aggressive path, a way to gain the power to challenge the Vance Corporation as quickly as possible. During my 5-year marriage, Maya had been watching over me in secret. Her most effective spy was my traitorous best friend, Leo. He knew I was searching for her and never said a word. Have you been waiting long? Unnoticed, Maya had sat down beside me, handing me a warm cup of coffee. It's getting a little chilly. Here, warm your hands. I came back to myself and looked into her gentle eyes, a teasing smile playing on my lips. Your hands are cold too. Why didn't you get one for yourself? When your hands are warm, I'll just hold them, and then mine will be warm too, Maya replied, completely serious. My smile widened. After my divorce, Maya had proposed to me several times, but I had always hesitated. For one, I was just out of a failed marriage, and I couldn't be sure that Maya's world wasn't just as chaotic as Chloe's. Even if she truly had feelings for me now, what if it was just the lingering obsession of a childhood crush, of wanting what she couldn't have? I had no desire to spend another 5 years with the next Chloe Vance. Secondly, I felt there was a gap of several years between us. Our lives, our feelings, everything had changed. It was better to just be together like this for a while. If, after some time, we both still felt the same way, then we could talk about what came next. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chloe and Julian enter the auction hall. Neither of them looked happy. Chloe even had a fresh bruise on the corner of her lip. I wondered if they'd had another fight on the way over. Seeing her so miserable, I felt a sense of relief. A person like her deserves someone like Julian to keep her in check. A thought struck me. I turned to Maya. "Hey, you have a business trip coming up, right?" "I do," she said, her fingers toying with mine. But as always when we spoke, her full attention was on me, her eyes locked on mine. It was these little things that always got to me. They say you can see love in someone's eyes. No matter how good an actor someone is, the details will always give them away. With me, Maya was always so genuine. "It's just to finalize a project. I'll be back in 3 days at the latest. Is there anything you want me to bring back for you?" "Actually, there's something I'd like you to bring back for me," I said, nodding seriously. "Name it," she said, her eyebrows raised as she pressed a soft kiss to my fingertips. "Whatever you want, I'll do my best to get it for you." I pretended to think for a long moment. Then, as I saw the tension building in her eyes, I broke into a wide grin. "When you come back, bring me the first bouquet of flowers you see." I paused. "And a ring." "What?" Maya's mind was still catching up. You can't do it." I poked her cheek, which was soft and smooth. "I was thinking that if you could manage that, I might just say yes to marrying you." The moment the words left my mouth, a look of pure, unadulterated joy exploded across Maya's face. Forgetting where we were, she threw her arms around me, pulling me into a tight hug. "I can do it. I can do it," she repeated, her voice filled with a giddy, disbelieving happiness. I let her hold me, ignoring the surprised and curious glances from those around us, and hugged her back with a smile. "Then it's a deal," I whispered. "I'll be waiting for you to come home."